Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much. Pastor, where have you been? Well, it's not a question of where I have been. It's a question of where have the cameraman and all the cameras been. Now, normally, either I have Brother John tape these in my office or I have my GoPro set up at the house, but on the Israel tour, Brother John had all of the cameras, and when we got separated and they got stuck, well, Sister Bev decided that she would do a few just to make sure that we would have everything taken care of. But let me pick back up in Leviticus chapter 27 today with a very controversial subject that I don't understand why it's controversial. In verse 30, a tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy. If a man redeems any of his tithe, he must add a fifth of the value to it. The entire tithe of the herd and flock, every 10th animal that passes under the shepherd's rod, will be holy to the Lord. Now, first of all, tithing is not a part of the law. It's in the law, but it did not originate in the law. So when we say we've been redeemed from the law, it doesn't mean that we've been redeemed from tithing. I teach you every year during tithing week that the tithe originated in the garden, where God set apart one thing and said, that is mine, everything else is yours, but respect my authority in your life, and that is mine. I taught you that tithing was a part of Abraham's life long before the law. I taught you that tithing is a part of the law, and I taught you that Jesus taught tithing. Say, no, he didn't. Yes, he did. Remember when he said a tithe, you tithe in mint, dill, and cumin, but you neglect the weightier matters of the law? He said, you should do the former without neglecting the latter. In other words, don't neglect tithing. Now, if you and I want to be blessed, tithing is just a normal part of our life. It's how we recognize God's authority in our life. It's a symbol of our submission to God's authority. A tithe of all of the profit, a tithe of all of the income, a tithe of all of the increase. Not a tithe of everything you own, a tithe of the increase. That belongs to God. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to God. Now, to me, that's a great trade, because God says, all right, I'm going to bless the work of your hands, I'm going to prosper you, I'm going to give you increase, and 10% of it belongs to me. You say, well, God, what do you do with your 10%? God takes that tithe and then uses it to provide spiritual leadership over our lives. He said, I love you so much, I want to make sure we stay close, so I'm going to take what belongs to me and I will support spiritual leadership in your life. This is why I teach people, you don't support the pastors. God supports the pastors to take care of you. God uses what belongs to him to take care of you. But let me clear up one misunderstanding in this passage, where it talks about if you redeem any of the tithe, you must add a fifth of the value to it, 20%. Now, I hear preachers taking this verse and using this to proof text a doctrine that they have, that if you don't pay your tithe on time, then you have to add 20% to it. You know, God is not interested in you. God is not a bill collector, okay? That's not who God is. If you've sinned, if you've done wrong, and you've not been a tither, he's not asking you to go back and add a 20% interest to it. He just says, repent, and as Jesus says, go and sin no more. Now, if you're listening to me today and you have not been a tither, whatever church you belong to, next week, you need to start returning the tithe to God so that there can be food in his house, so that he can provide all the spiritual leadership he wants to provide for your life. And don't worry about the past. Just repent and go and sin no more. It's not about money. It's about a symbol of our submission to obedience to God.